He signed the order with the same hand that would betray him. The iron door beneath the desert compound closed with a sound that did not echo. It swallowed. And somewhere below the earth of the Saudi kingdom, in a chamber carved from stone in silence, a young woman lifted her eyes, not in fear, but in worship. Beloved, welcome home. I'm Grace. This is Unbroken Courage, where faith stands even when power threatens, where heaven answers when earth tries to silence. Before we go further, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. You are not here by accident today. What you're about to hear is not a legend. It was told to me by a man who once wore authority like armor and shame like a hidden wound. His name is Khalid ibn Rashid al-Harbi. He sat across from me 3 months ago. He did not look like a man who believed in mercy, but he was a man who had been broken by it. He didn't begin with her name, he began with the order. It was routine, he said quietly. His fingers tightened around the glass of water I had offered him. His right hand trembled slightly when he lifted it. I had signed dozens before, religious violations, unauthorized gatherings, foreign influence investigations. He swallowed. But she did not look afraid. Her name was Mariam Haddad, 23 years old, born to a Lebanese father and a Saudi mother. Quiet, educated, fluent in Arabic and English, arrested for possession of an unauthorized religious text, a Bible, not hidden carefully, not buried. She had been reading it aloud, in a dormitory room. Someone reported her. They brought her to my office, Khalid said. He looked down as he spoke. She was small, not weak, just calm. He paused. She did not argue. I asked him what she said. He closed his eyes before answering. She said, "Sir, I know you are doing your job, but God sees me here too." He exhaled slowly. I laughed. He did not laugh now. Beloved, power is loud, faith is quiet, but quiet things are not weak. Khalid had risen quickly in the Internal Security Authority, 38 years old, disciplined, respected, feared. He believed in order, in national loyalty, in preserving cultural purity. He did not believe in Jesus, he believed in control. She wouldn't deny it, he told me. They gave her a chance. He shifted in his seat. They told her if she renounced it, she would be released quietly. No public record, no shame. I leaned forward, and she asked if she could keep the book. His jaw tightened. When they said no, she said she would rather keep the book. Silence filled the room between us. She smiled. Beloved, there are smiles that come from defiance, and there are smiles that come from certainty. Hers was not defiance, it was certainty. The detention chamber beneath the compound was rarely used for long stays. Cold, windowless, buried beneath layers of concrete and sand. It was meant to make people rethink, Khalid said. He did not look at me when he added, I ordered her placed there. He signed the paper, stamped it, authorized indefinite underground confinement pending execution review. He remembered the ink drying. He remembered adjusting his cufflinks afterward. He remembered not thinking about her again. Until that night. She began singing, he said suddenly. I blinked. Singing? Yes. He nodded slowly. The guards reported it. He swallowed. They said it wasn't loud, just steady, like she wasn't alone. The song wasn't one they recognized. It wasn't traditional. It wasn't rebellious. It was gentle, a worship song, under the ground, awaiting death. Khalid waved off the first report. She's trying to stay sane, he told his men. But the second report unsettled him. She doesn't cry. The third disturbed him. She thanks God before eating. The fourth irritated him. She prays for you by name. At this, his voice cracked. I had never met her before that day. Beloved, when someone prays for you in the dark, heaven listens. The night everything shifted began like any other. Khalid returned home, removed his uniform, washed his hands, sat at the dining table. He lifted his right hand to break bread and felt a tightness. He flexed his fingers. They resisted. A dull pressure throbbed through his palm. He assumed exhaustion. Too many files, too much heat. He ignored it. But by midnight, the hand had doubled in size. His wife gasped when she saw it, swollen, darkening, not bruised, not injured, dark, as if ink had seeped beneath the skin. By morning, it was nearly black, not decayed, not wounded, just blackened and swollen beyond proportion. No ring fit, no cuff buttoned, no sleeve closed around it. He did not go to work that day. For the first time in 12 years, Officer Khalid al-Harbi was a no-show. Doctors found nothing. No infection, no trauma, no circulation issue, no poison. Blood tests normal, scans clean. One physician whispered quietly to another, "It does not behave medically." Beloved, there are afflictions that science can measure, and there are signs that heaven writes. By the third day, the swelling worsened. He kept it hidden, refused calls, avoided colleagues. He would not show weakness. He would not show shame. But at night, he heard it, a faint melody, in his mind, the same song the guards reported from underground. He shook his head violently when he told me this. I do not believe in superstition. His voice lowered, but I could hear her voice. And that was the moment when something inside him began to tremble. He had locked her away beneath the earth. But something had followed him home. He didn't yet connect it, not fully, but the question had begun. Why now? Why the right hand? Why after signing her confinement order? And below the sand, Miriam continued singing. The swelling did not stop. It advanced. By the fourth morning, Khalid's right hand no longer resembled his own. The skin had stretched until it shone. The darkened color deepened from charcoal to something almost metallic. Not bruised, not rotting, just unnaturally black. It looked like it didn't belong to me, he told me. He kept it wrapped in a loose white cloth when he sat across from me. Even months later, the memory made him pull his sleeve lower. I tried to pray, he admitted quietly. That confession surprised me. You tried to pray? He nodded once. Yes, but not to her God. His jaw tightened. I asked for strength, for discipline, for focus. I asked for healing. He paused, and nothing happened. Beloved, when heaven is silent, it is not always absence. Sometimes it is confrontation. The compound buzzed with rumors. An officer of his rank did not simply disappear from duty without consequence. His deputy, Captain Faris al-Mutayri, called repeatedly. Khalid ignored him at first, but by the fifth day the swelling had become impossible to conceal. The hand could no longer close fully. His fingers were stiff, enlarged, darkened. His wife stopped asking questions. She began watching him instead. You need to see another doctor, she insisted. He did. Specialists, private clinics, a discreet hospital outside Riyadh. Nothing. No diagnosis. One physician finally said carefully, sometimes the body reflects internal stress. Khalid stared at him coldly. You think this is stress? The doctor did not answer. That evening, Khalid forced himself back to the compound. He wrapped his hand tightly, wore a larger thobe, kept his right arm stiff at his side. Captain Faris met him near the security checkpoint. Sir, we were concerned, Khalid nodded curtly. I am fine. But Faris's eyes lingered on the stiffness, then he hesitated. There is something else. Khalid felt irritation rise. What? It's the girl. His jaw set immediately. What about her? Faris swallowed. She refuses food at times, not in protest. She fasts voluntarily. She prays, and sir... He lowered his voice. She says you are being visited. Khalid's heart skipped once. What did you say? She told the guard last night that the hand that wrote will be shown. Silence. The hallway felt suddenly narrower. Khalid's pulse throbbed in his swollen palm. Beloved, when a prisoner speaks calmly of things they should not know, it unsettles power. She has not seen me since the arrest, Khalid muttered. Faris nodded. Yes, sir. Then how would she know anything about me? I don't know. Khalid dismissed him sharply, but the words followed him down the corridor. The hand that wrote will be shown. He avoided going below ground. He signed papers left-handed. He delegated inspections, but on the seventh night, he could not sleep. The melody returned, soft, persistent. The same rhythm described by the guards. Not haunting, not threatening, just steady. He rose from bed, walked to the mirror, unwrapped the cloth. The hand looked worse in the dim light. Veins darkened, skin stretched. Heavy, ashamed, he pressed it against the cold glass. I did my duty, he whispered. There was no answer. The next morning, he did something he had not planned. He descended. The underground corridor was colder than usual, or perhaps he felt it more sharply now. 2 guards straightened when they saw him. Open it, he ordered. The iron door groaned as it unlocked. The chamber smelled faintly of stone and oil. Mariam sat on a thin mat. Her Bible rested on her lap. She looked up slowly, and she smiled. Not mockingly, not triumphantly, gently. You came, she said. Her voice was soft, but it did not tremble. Khalid stood rigid at the threshold. He did not step fully inside. Why are you speaking about me? He demanded. She tilted her head slightly. I pray. For me, for everyone here. Her eyes moved briefly to his right arm. He stiffened. "You do not know anything about my life." She nodded. "That is true." He felt anger rise. "Then why would you say something about a hand?" She closed the Bible carefully. Her fingers lingered on its worn cover. "Because when I was praying," she said slowly, "I saw ink." His breath caught. "I saw a document, and I saw a hand pressing down hard." Silence filled the chamber. "And I asked God to show you mercy," she continued. His voice came out sharper than intended. "Mercy? From what?" She held his gaze. "From the weight of your own authority." "Beloved, there are words that pierce without shouting." Khalid stepped back abruptly. He refused to let her see fear. "You are not a prophet," he said coldly. "No," she replied gently, "I am just his." The simplicity unsettled him more than defiance would have. He turned to leave, but before the door shut, she added quietly, "The hand that writes judgment can also write freedom." That night, the swelling spread past his wrist. By the 10th day, the blackness was no longer something he could dismiss. It was not bruised purple, not infected red, not decaying. It was black, real black, deep as oil, dark as ink spilled into skin. When Khalid unwrapped the cloth that morning, the color had crept beyond his wrist, climbing slowly toward his forearm like a shadow that refused to stop. He stared at it in the mirror. The contrast was violent. His natural skin tone ended abruptly at the swelling, and then the darkness began, thick, opaque, unnatural. His wife covered her mouth when she saw it fully exposed. "It looks burned," she whispered. "It is not burned," he snapped, but he knew. Burns blistered. This did not blister, it simply deepened. Beloved, there is a difference between sickness and sign, and even a man trained to reject superstition can feel the difference. He wrapped it tighter, changed doctors again. Flew quietly to a private specialist in Jeddah under a false reason. The physician examined it for nearly an hour. Needles, lights, pressure tests. The doctor finally leaned back, confused. "There is circulation," he said slowly, "but the pigmentation," he hesitated. "It does not respond to any known pathology." Khalid's voice hardened. "Are you saying you don't know?" "I am saying," the doctor replied carefully, "it does not behave like disease." The swelling made his sleeve bulge unnaturally. He ordered new garments tailored wider, but nothing fit correctly. Shirts would not slide over the hand without force. Fabric strained at the wrist. He began wearing darker clothing, to hide it, to blend shadow with shadow. But the blackness did not blend, it absorbed light. Even under bright lamps, it looked matte, heavy, like something painted onto him by unseen hands. He stopped shaking hands, stopped attending public functions, signed documents with his left, delegated more authority, but every time a paper was brought to him, his eyes fell to his right hand, the one that signed Miriam's confinement, the one that pressed the seal, the one that approved indefinite underground detention pending execution. The blackness seemed darkest across his palm, as if the ink had soaked through. At night, the melody returned again, clearer now, not echoing in his head, echoing in memory, her voice steady, unafraid, singing beneath layers of concrete and sand. He went back underground. He did not tell anyone he was coming. The guards straightened nervously when they saw him descending. One of them glanced involuntarily at his sleeve. Khalid noticed. "Open it." The iron door groaned again. Mariam sat where she always did, Bible open, her lips moving quietly. She stopped when she sensed him, and when her eyes fell to his wrapped arm, she did not look surprised. She looked saddened. "You're still praying for me?" he asked sharply. "Yes," she said. "Stop," she blinked softly. "I cannot." His jaw tightened. "Look at this." He ripped the cloth off. The air in the chamber shifted. The blackness was undeniable in the dim underground light. It was not bruised. It was not veined with red. It was not cracked or wounded. It was smooth, uniform, dark, and swollen nearly twice its natural size. Mariam inhaled quietly, but not in fear, in recognition. He stepped closer. "What have you done?" She shook her head gently. "I have done nothing." "Then explain it." Her eyes lifted to his. "You signed something." His breath sharpened. "That is my job." She nodded. "Yes." Silence. Then softly, "But heaven reads too." The words hung in the underground air like dust. "Beloved, authority writes on paper, but heaven writes on flesh. You think your God is punishing me?" Khalid demanded. "No," she replied calmly. "I think he is showing you." "Showing me what?" "That the hand that condemns the innocent carries weight." He clenched his left fist. "This is absurd." She looked at his hand again. "It is not spreading because I am here," she said gently. "It is spreading because your heart is not finished." The blackness pulsed faintly under the lantern light. For the first time, he felt fear. Not of her, of what he could not control. He stormed out of the chamber. But that night, the swelling reached mid-forearm. The blackness deepened further, not faded, not fluctuating, deepened. He could no longer deny it. The color was real, solid, like something stamped onto him. And every time he closed his eyes, he saw the moment he pressed the seal. Below ground, Mariam continued singing, and above ground, the hand that signed her sentence darkened further. By the 12th day, Khalid stopped pretending it could be hidden. The blackness had crossed the midpoint of his forearm. It was not patchy, not streaked, not fading in places. It was uniform, dense, as if dipped slowly into a vat of ink and left there to dry. His wife no longer asked questions. She avoided looking at it directly. The servants whispered when he passed. Even the mirror seemed to resist reflecting it fully, the light dulled against it. "It doesn't look human," he muttered to himself that morning. And that thought frightened him more than the swelling, because he had always believed in order, structure, predictability. This was none of those things. Beloved, when power encounters something it cannot command, it trembles. He called for Captain Ferris privately. They met in Khalid's office after hours. The blinds drawn, the lights dimmed. Ferris stood stiffly. "You've heard the rumors," Khalid said flatly. Ferris hesitated. "Yes, sir." "And," Ferris swallowed, "it began after the underground order." Silence. Khalid unwrapped the cloth deliberately. The blackness glistened dully under the desk lamp. Ferris flinched despite himself. "Sir, speak. It is not natural." Khalid's voice hardened. "You think I don't know that?" Ferris lowered his eyes. "There is talk among the guards." "What talk?" "That the girl is protected." The word lingered in the air. Protected? By what? By whom? Khalid leaned back slowly. "Bring me the execution review file." Ferris looked startled. "Sir, it is scheduled for review in 3 days. Bring it now." The file lay thick and heavy on the desk. Khalid stared at it, his right hand rested beside it, swollen, black, immovable. He hesitated. For the first time in his career, he hesitated before touching a document. He reached with his left instead, opened the file. Mariam Haddad. Charge, unauthorized religious evangelism. Secondary charge, refusal to renounce. Recommended action, capital punishment pending final authorization. He stared at the final authorization line, the space reserved for his signature. Empty, waiting. Beloved. The same hand that condemned once was now being asked to condemn again. That night, sleep abandoned him completely. The melody no longer echoed faintly. It was clear, persistent, not loud, just unwavering. He pressed his swollen hand against his chest. The skin felt heavy, hot, not fevered, just burdened. And then he dreamed. Not a chaotic dream, not symbolic in the way of ordinary nightmares. He saw paper, endless sheets of paper. And every time he signed one, the ink bled outward, spreading, darkening, until the entire page was swallowed. He woke gasping, his hand throbbed violently. The next morning he descended again, alone, no guards at the door this time. He opened it himself. Mariam sat cross-legged, the Bible open, her lips moved softly in prayer. When she saw him, she did not stand. "You look tired," she said gently. He ignored the comment. "Is this your God's justice?" he demanded, lifting his arm. The blackness now nearly reached his elbow. "No," she replied calmly. "It is his warning." His jaw tightened. A warning of what? That power is not ownership. Silence stretched between them. He stepped closer this time, fully into the chamber. "You speak as if you are safe." She met his gaze steadily. "I am." "You are underground." "Yes." "Awaiting death." "Yes." "And you feel safe?" Her voice did not shake. "Yes." That unsettled him more than any accusation. "How?" She closed the Bible gently. "Because my life does not belong to you." The air felt thinner. He glanced at his hand. "Tell me how to stop it," he said suddenly. The word surprised even him. Her eyes softened. "It is not stopped with medicine." "Then how?" "With mercy." He stiffened. "Mercy for you? For yourself?" He frowned. "What does that mean?" She held his gaze. "Release what you bound." The words landed heavier than any accusation. He felt the pulse in his blackened palm. Strong, relentless. "Beloved, there are moments when a man must choose between pride and freedom." He was standing in one. But pride had built his career. Pride had protected his reputation. Pride had shaped his identity. He turned abruptly. I will not be manipulated by superstition. Her voice followed him calmly. Then the ink will continue to spread. That night, the blackness crept higher, and for the first time, a faint shadow appeared near his wrist on the other arm. By the 14th day, Khalid stopped counting hours. He counted inches. Every morning, he stood before the mirror and measured how far the darkness had traveled. It had reached his elbow, not streaked, not fading, not bruised, solid, heavy. An unnatural black that did not reflect light the way skin should. It was as though shadow had substance. His right sleeve now had to be specially altered just to slide over it. Even then, the fabric stretched awkwardly, pulling tight across the swollen mass of his forearm. Buttons popped, cuffs tore, nothing fit. He stopped leaving the house entirely. Calls from the compound piled up unanswered. Captain Ferris came once, stood in the doorway, and tried not to stare. Sir, the Execution Review Board is requesting your presence. Khalid said nothing. They need your signature. That word again, signature. His jaw tightened. Delay it. For how long? As long as necessary. Ferris hesitated. There are rumors spreading. Some of the men are afraid. Afraid of what? Ferris swallowed. They believe something is happening because of her. Khalid's voice dropped dangerously low. Superstition will not run my command. But inside, something was cracking. Beloved, authority can silence mouths, but it cannot silence conscience. That night, he unwrapped the cloth completely and examined the arm under bright light. The skin had thickened. The swelling distorted the shape of his hand so severely that the knuckles were barely visible. His fingers, once precise and disciplined, now looked enlarged and heavy, stiff, almost foreign. And the color? It was not surface deep. When he pressed into it, the darkness did not lighten. It did not shift. It was embedded, as if written into him. His breathing grew uneven. He remembered her words. Release what you bound. He slammed his fist, or tried to, against the wall. The impact sent pain shooting up his arm, but the color did not change. The darkness did not react. It simply remained, unmoved. The melody returned again. Clearer now. Not distant, not faint. It was as if the sound traveled through stone and sand and reached him directly. He covered his ears. It did not stop. The next morning, something new appeared. Not on the right arm, on the left, a faint discoloration near the wrist. Small, subtle, but undeniable. His breath caught. No, he whispered. He rushed to a private clinic again, demanding emergency scans. The doctor examined both arms carefully. Is this spreading? The doctor asked cautiously. Khalid did not answer immediately. Yes. The doctor looked troubled. This does not follow any known medical progression. I know that, Khalid snapped. The doctor lowered his voice. Then perhaps the source is not medical. Khalid stood abruptly. I will not entertain mysticism. But as he left the clinic, his steps were slower, because the second arm did not lie. Beloved, when consequences multiply, denial weakens. He descended underground again, this time without announcing himself. The corridor felt colder, the air heavier. He opened the iron door himself. Mariam looked thinner now, but not broken. She was kneeling when he entered, praying quietly. When she lifted her eyes, there was no fear in them, only concern. You did not release it, she said softly. His voice came out strained. It is spreading. She closed her eyes briefly. Yes. He stepped closer than ever before, his breathing uneven. You said mercy would stop it. Yes. Then why is it worse? She held his gaze steadily. Because you are fighting it. He felt anger flare. You think this is a game? No. Her voice remained calm. I think you are afraid. The word struck him harder than accusation. I fear nothing. She looked at both his arms. You fear losing control. Silence fell between them. Heavy. He could not deny it. His identity was built on command, on decisions, on signatures, on enforcement. If this darkness was tied to his authority, then it was attacking the very foundation of who he believed he was. What do you want from me? He asked quietly. I want nothing, she replied, but heaven desires repentance. The word hung in the chamber, repentance. He had enforced it from others, demanded renunciations, extracted written confessions. Now the word stood before him, turned inward. For what? He demanded. For condemning what you did not understand. He swallowed hard. I was preserving order. You were preserving image. The difference sliced deep. He turned away abruptly. But before he reached the door, she said softly, the darkness is not punishment. He paused. It is exposure. Beloved, There are moments when a man begins to see himself clearly, and clarity can feel like judgment. That night, the discoloration on his left wrist deepened, still small, but unmistakable. His right arm throbbed relentlessly. The melody did not stop, and for the first time, Khalid whispered into the darkness of his room, "If this is from you, show me." He did not yet know which you he was speaking to, but heaven had heard. The discoloration on his left wrist did not spread quickly, it deepened. That frightened him more, because slow things feel intentional. His right arm had become enormous now, swollen from hand to elbow. The skin stretched and darkened so completely that it looked carved from shadow. The blackness was not glossy, it was dull. Heavy, as if light itself refused to cling to it. He could no longer bend the elbow fully. His fingers had grown stiff. Writing was impossible with that hand. Signing was unthinkable. And yet the execution review file still waited. Beloved. There are battles fought in public, and there are battles fought in the quiet of a man's bedroom at 2 a.m. This one was the second kind. That night, Khalid did not hear the melody. For the first time in days, there was silence. But the silence felt different. It was not empty. It was expectant. He lay awake, staring at the ceiling. His right arm rested on a pillow beside him because it was too heavy to rest naturally at his side. He stared at it. The darkness seemed deeper in the moonlight. He whispered again, "If this is from you, show me." The room remained still. Minutes passed. Then something shifted. Not in the air. In him. A memory surfaced, clearer than before. The day of her arrest, her hands cuffed but steady, her voice gentle. "Sir, I know you are doing your job, but God sees me here too." He had laughed, mocked her calm, diminished her certainty. Another memory followed, her words underground. The hand that condemns the innocent carries weight. His breathing slowed. In that moment, for the first time, he allowed the possibility that this was not random. Beloved. The hardest prison to escape is pride. The next morning, he called Captain Ferris. "Bring the file," Khalid said. There was a pause on the other end. "Yes, sir." When Ferris arrived, his eyes immediately went to Khalid's arms, the left wrist now clearly marked, the right arm massive and dark. "Sir," Ferris whispered before he could stop himself. Khalid cut him off. "Close the door." Ferris obeyed. Khalid stared at the execution file placed before him. The signature line waited, his name printed neatly beneath. He stared at his right hand. It twitched slightly. Pain shot through it like pressure from within. He could not hold a pen with it, not physically, but something deeper held him back even more. "Have you ever questioned what we do?" Khalid asked suddenly. Ferris stiffened. "Sir?" "Have you ever wondered if enforcing belief produces loyalty or fear?" Ferris did not answer immediately. "That is not our role to decide." Khalid gave a faint, bitter exhale. "That is exactly my concern." Silence. Then Ferris said carefully, "Sir, the men are unsettled. Some refuse to guard her alone at night. Why? They say the atmosphere changes around her cell." Khalid's eyes lifted. "Explain." "They describe peace." The word struck him strangely. "Peace?" "Yes, sir." "They are afraid of peace?" Ferris swallowed. "They say it does not feel like a condemned prisoner's chamber." Beloved. When peace survives persecution, it becomes a witness. That evening, Khalid descended again. But this time he did not storm, he did not accuse, he entered quietly. Mariam was seated, eyes closed. When she opened them, she studied him carefully. "You are tired," she said gently. He did not deny it. "I asked for a sign," he said. "And I remembered." She nodded softly. "That is the beginning." He stepped closer than ever before. "I cannot sign the order." Her eyes filled, not with triumph, but with relief. "Then do not." "You don't understand," he said, voice strained. "My authority depends on consistency. If I release you, questions will come. Yes, investigations. Yes, suspicion. Yes." She did not soften the reality. He looked at both his arms. "If I do nothing, this spreads." "Yes, and if I release you?" She hesitated. "I believe it will stop." He searched her face. "Believe?" "Yes. You're not certain?" She met his gaze steadily. "I am certain of who holds mercy. I am not certain how you will respond." The honesty disarmed him. He lowered himself slowly to sit on the stone bench opposite her. For the first time, he sat, not as an officer, as a man. "What if I am wrong?" he whispered. "What if your God does not heal me?" She closed the Bible gently. "Then you will have chosen mercy anyway." The words struck deeper than fear. He sat there a long time. Longer than he intended. Longer than protocol allowed. Above ground, guards shifted nervously. Time passed. When he finally stood to leave, she said softly, "Tomorrow will matter." Beloved, there are nights that divide a life in two. He was walking into one. That night, the darkness in his right arm throbbed with unusual intensity, but it did not spread further. For the first time in days, it paused. And that frightened him more than when it moved, because now a decision would determine the next inch. Morning came heavy. Khalid did not sleep. He sat upright in the chair near his window, watching the sky pale over the Riyadh horizon. His right arm rested across his lap, swollen and dark from hand to elbow. The blackness had not advanced overnight, but it had not lightened either. It waited, and so did he. Beloved, there are moments when heaven does not push, it waits for a man to move. At 8:12 a.m., the execution review board assembled. 3 officials, 1 legal advisor, Captain Faris standing quietly at the side. The file sat centered on the polished table. Mariam Haddad. Charge, refusal to renounce. Recommendation, capital enforcement. Khalid entered last. Every eye noticed the stiffness in his movement. He did not remove his outer garment. He did not offer greetings. He took his seat. "Proceed," he said. The legal advisor cleared his throat and summarized the charges, the evidence, the refusal, the documentation. "Final authorization required," the advisor concluded. The file was slid toward him, the pen placed neatly beside it. Silence fell across the room. Khalid stared at the signature line, his name printed beneath. Waiting, he glanced down at his right hand. It lay heavy and distorted beside the table. Black, swollen, unmistakable. He reached for the pen with his left, then paused. Something inside him resisted. For years, his right hand had signed every final order. It was symbolic, authoritative, consistent. Now it could not even hold the pen. He swallowed. "Is there an alternative to capital enforcement?" he asked calmly. The room stiffened. One official frowned slightly. "The law is clear." "Yes," Khalid said evenly. "But the law also allows discretionary reassignment or exile under specific clauses." A long silence followed. The advisor shuffled through pages. "There is precedent," he admitted cautiously, "but rarely applied." "Then apply it," Khalid said. The room grew tense. One board member leaned forward. "Officer Al-Harbi, this is irregular." Khalid's gaze did not waver. "So is what is happening to me." The words slipped out before he could contain them. Every eye flicked briefly toward his concealed arm. He continued calmly, "She is not a threat to national security. She is a personal believer. Exile is sufficient." The room remained divided, but Khalid did not raise his voice. He did not argue emotionally. He simply held steady. After several minutes of quiet deliberation, the senior official spoke. "Very well. Conditional exile under surveillance. Immediate removal from the kingdom." The decision was recorded. The execution line struck through. The document slid back to him. "Sign." He picked up the pen with his left hand. The ink felt heavier than usual. He signed. Not the order of death, the order of release. Beloved. Sometimes the miracle begins before the healing. The meeting adjourned. Captain Faris followed him out into the corridor. "Sir, are you certain?" Khalid stopped walking. "No," Faris hesitated, "but you are doing it anyway?" "Yes." They stood in silence. Then Faris said quietly, "The guards will prepare her transfer." Khalid nodded. "Bring her to the surface before sunset." That afternoon, the underground door opened for the final time. Mariam stood slowly as the guards entered. She had been informed. Her eyes did not widen. She simply closed the Bible gently. When Khalid stepped into the chamber, she looked at him, not with surprise, but with gratitude. "You chose mercy," she said softly. He did not trust his voice immediately. "You are being exiled." She nodded. "That is enough." Silence lingered between them. He looked at his arm, still black, still swollen, still unchanged. "You said it would stop." "I said I believe it would," she replied gently. He swallowed. "And if it doesn't?" She stepped closer than she ever had before, not touching him, but close enough that he could see the steadiness in her eyes. "Then you will still have done what was right." Those words struck deeper than any argument. The guards escorted her toward the stairwell. Halfway up, she turned back briefly and said something that would echo in him long after. "God defends those who belong to him, but he also restores those who turn." Then she disappeared into the light above. Beloved, he had released her body from beneath the earth, but heaven had not yet released his arm. That night, Khalid stood alone in his room. He removed the wrapping slowly. The blackness remained, unmoved, unfaded. From hand to elbow, his heart sank. "Was I wrong?" he whispered. But then something shifted, not in color, in sensation. The throbbing eased. For the first time in weeks, the pressure inside the arm lessened. Subtle, but real. He flexed his fingers slightly. The stiffness resisted, but not as harshly. He froze. Was it imagination? He waited. Minutes passed. The heaviness did not intensify. It did not climb higher. It held steady. And on his left wrist, the faint mark stopped deepening. Beloved, the first sign of mercy is not always visible. Sometimes it is the stopping of further judgment. He sat on the edge of his bed, staring at his arm, not healed, but no longer advancing. And for the first time, he whispered clearly, "Jesus." He did not know why he said it. He did not understand fully what it meant, but the name left his lips, and something in the room shifted. The name did not echo. It did not thunder. No light filled the room. No voice answered from the ceiling. He simply said it, "Jesus." And the silence that followed felt different. Not empty, not tense, settled. Beloved, there are names spoken in anger, names spoken in mockery. And then there are names spoken when a man has nowhere else to turn. He did not say it as a declaration, he said it as a question. The heaviness in his arm did not vanish instantly, but something had changed. The pressure that once felt like something pushing outward had softened. He flexed his fingers slowly. Pain still pulsed, the skin was still dark, but the swelling felt less aggressive. He stood and walked to the mirror, raised his arm into the light. The blackness remained thick and unnatural, but it no longer seemed to be spreading. For the first time in nearly 3 weeks, it had stopped climbing. The next morning, Captain Ferris returned with an update. "She has been escorted to the airport. Departure confirmed." Khalid nodded. "Any complications?" "No, sir." A pause. "Sir, the men are talking." "About what?" "They say the underground chamber feels empty now." Khalid's expression did not change. "Of course it does. She's gone." Ferris hesitated. "That's not what I mean." But Khalid did not press him. Beloved, peace leaves an imprint, even when the person carrying it walks away. The day moved quietly. No medical appointments, no frantic attempts at diagnosis. He simply observed, watched, measured. By evening, the discoloration on his left wrist had not deepened further. It remained faint, still visible, but not spreading. His right arm still bore the heavy darkness from hand to elbow, but the swelling had reduced slightly, not dramatically, just enough that the sleeve no longer strained as violently. He sat at his desk alone that night. The execution file lay closed beside him. He ran his left fingers across the cover, and then carefully he did something unexpected. He opened his laptop, typed a single word into the search field. Jesus. He stared at the screen as results appeared. History. Scripture. Testimonies. Persecution stories. Accounts of believers who refused to renounce. He felt something unfamiliar stir inside him. Not anger, not resistance, curiosity. He clicked on a translated passage from the New Testament. His eyes moved slowly across the words. "Father, forgive them." He froze, "for they do not know what they are doing." His breathing slowed. He leaned back in his chair. He had locked her underground, authorized her execution, mocked her certainty. And she had prayed for him. He pressed his left hand against his chest. The words would not leave his mind. Forgive them. Beloved, when Scripture reads you back, it unsettles everything. He descended underground one final time that week, not because he needed to, because he wanted to. The chamber was empty, the mat still there, the lantern hanging, the air quiet. He stood where she had sat, and for the first time in his life, he knelt. Not out of ritual, not out of obligation, but out of uncertainty. "I don't understand you," he whispered into the stone, "but I cannot deny what has happened." His right arm rested heavily against the ground, dark, still unnatural, but no longer worsening. "If you are real, then show me how to live differently." There was no dramatic response, no visible sign, but when he stood again, something inside him felt lighter. The next morning, he unwrapped his arm. The blackness remained, but along the edge near his elbow, the color looked thinner. He leaned closer to the mirror. It was subtle, so subtle he questioned his own perception, but where the darkness had once ended sharply, now the border seemed faintly softened. He waited, watched. By midday, the swelling had reduced enough that he could slightly close his fingers. Not fully, but more than before. His breath caught. He did not call a doctor. He did not announce it. He simply whispered again, Jesus. Beloved, mercy does not rush. It restores in layers. That night, as he prepared for sleep, he noticed something that made him sit upright. The left wrist, the faint mark that had begun days ago, was fading. Slowly, but undeniably. The skin tone there was returning. He stared at it for a long time. Then he looked at his right arm, still dark, still swollen, but no longer advancing, no longer conquering. For the first time since this began, hope entered the room. And hope frightened him almost as much as the darkness had, because hope meant change, and change would demand more than one merciful decision. The fading did not happen in one dramatic moment. It happened in edges. Khalid stood before the mirror at dawn and studied his arm under the pale light. The blackness that had once ended sharply near his elbow now appeared slightly uneven, as if something beneath the surface was pushing it back. He leaned closer. For weeks, the darkness had advanced steadily, like ink spreading across wet parchment. Now, it was retreating, not dramatically, but undeniably. The swelling had reduced just enough that the shape of his knuckles began to reappear beneath the stretched skin. His fingers, though still stiff, bent slightly more than before. He flexed them slowly. Pain still pulsed. But it was no longer violent, it was healing pain, and he knew the difference. Beloved, when judgment stops advancing, mercy has already begun its work. That morning, he returned to his office for the first time without hiding. He did not display his arm openly, but he did not disguise it as carefully either. Captain Ferris noticed immediately. Sir, it looks, he stopped himself. Different. Khalid nodded slightly. Yes, Ferris hesitated. Did the doctors? No. He did not elaborate. He simply added, She has left the country? Yes, sir. Flight confirmed. She is safe. Khalid absorbed that word. Safe. The weight of it settled differently in him now. He dismissed Ferris and sat alone for a long time. The execution file lay in the cabinet, closed, finished. He reached for another stack of documents awaiting review. Cases, detentions, interrogations. He began reading more slowly than usual, more carefully. Where he once skimmed for violations, now he searched for nuance, for motive, for context. He caught himself pausing before marking approvals, and every time his pen hovered, he glanced at his arm. The darkness no longer felt like punishment. It felt like memory. Beloved, some scars are not meant to shame. They are meant to remind. That evening, as he removed his outer garment, he noticed something that caused his breath to catch. The blackness across his palm, once thick and impenetrable, had lightened slightly in the center. Not dramatically, but enough that the natural skin tone faintly showed beneath. He pressed his thumb into the area. The pressure did not intensify, it responded normally. He flexed his hand. This time his fingers closed halfway into a fist. For the first time in nearly a month, he exhaled slowly. Thank you, he whispered. The words came easier now, less foreign, more certain. But healing is rarely only physical. The next challenge arrived quietly. A senior official requested a private meeting, not about Mariam, about Khalid's recent decisions. You have delayed 3 enforcement reviews this week, the official said calmly. Yes, Khalid replied. Your record has always been consistent. I am reconsidering certain approaches. The official studied him carefully. Has something influenced you? Khalid's gaze did not waver. Yes, the answer hung between them. And what is that? Clarity. The official leaned back slowly. You understand our position depends on strength. And justice, Khalid replied. A thin silence followed. The meeting ended without open conflict. But Khalid knew eyes would now watch him more closely. Mercy carries cost. Beloved, choosing righteousness does not remove pressure. It redefines it. That night, he descended underground one final time, not to see a prisoner, but to stand in the empty chamber. He turned off the lantern and stood in the darkness. He remembered her voice, her calm, her certainty. He remembered the weight in his own heart. And then he spoke quietly into the stone, I did not understand what I was doing. The words felt strange, but true. He added, Teach me. When he left the chamber, something inside him had shifted fully, not in fear, in surrender. The next morning, the blackness had receded nearly an inch from his elbow. The swelling reduced further. The left wrist was almost completely restored. He stared at the gradual retreat of darkness, like a man watching dawn push back night. It did not vanish instantly. It withdrew steadily, deliberately, as if responding to something deeper than medicine. He flexed his hand again. This time he could close it fully, not tightly, but completely. He held the fist before him and whispered, "Mercy." And he understood. The darkness had not come to destroy him. It had come to confront him. But healing was not yet complete. The hand that had signed condemnation still carried shadow, and redemption would require more than one merciful decision. It would require a transformed life. The healing did not hide him. It exposed him. By the 5th week, the swelling in Khalid's arm had reduced enough that the outline of his hand looked almost normal beneath his sleeve. The darkness had receded past the elbow and was now slowly withdrawing toward the wrist. But it had not disappeared. It remained across his hand, a heavy, deep stain, a reminder. He could now close his fingers fully. He could hold a pen again. And that terrified him. Beloved, when God restores strength, he also restores responsibility. Word had spread quietly among the officers. Not about Jesus, not about Miriam, but about change. Khalid was slower now, more deliberate. Files that once moved quickly through his desk now lingered. He asked questions. He reviewed evidence personally. He rejected vague accusations. He began ordering further investigation before approving confinement. Captain Ferris noticed first. "You are different," Ferris said one evening after a long meeting. Khalid did not deny it. "Yes," Ferris lowered his voice. "Some are concerned." "I expected that." "Concerned you are becoming lenient." Khalid's gaze sharpened. "I am becoming careful. There is a difference." Ferris studied him. "Does this have to do with the girl?" Khalid hesitated only briefly. "Yes." The admission felt like stepping onto thin ice. Ferris waited, but Khalid said nothing more. Beloved, transformation does not shout. It shifts direction quietly, and everyone eventually notices. That night, Khalid sat alone in his study. His laptop open, a translated New Testament beside him he had begun reading daily, slowly, carefully. The words unsettled him, challenged him, softened him. He reached the passage again. "Father, forgive them." He paused, then he whispered, "Why? Why forgive those who harm you? Why pray for those who imprison you? Why sing in the dark?" He looked down at his hand. The blackness had receded further across the back, but the palm still bore deep color. It was lighter than before, but not gone. He pressed his thumb into the center. The sensation felt normal now. Warm. Alive. The darkness no longer throbbed. It lingered, as if waiting for something unfinished. The cost arrived sooner than he expected. An internal audit began reviewing recent case decisions. 3 of his delayed enforcement files were flagged. He was summoned. The senior official's tone was calm but pointed. "You have reversed 2 capital recommendations this month." "Yes." "On what basis?" "Insufficient evidence of organized threat." The official leaned forward. "Our stability depends on decisiveness. And our legitimacy depends on justice," Khalid replied evenly. Silence. "You are treading carefully," the official warned. "Yes," Khalid said, "I am." Beloved, there are consequences for cruelty, but there are also consequences for courage. That evening, Khalid's arm felt warm again. Not painful, not swelling, just warm. He stood before the mirror. The darkness across his hand had faded slightly more, the edges now clearly breaking apart, natural tone returning in patches. He flexed his fingers. They moved freely. He closed his hand into a fist and then opened it again, completely. For the first time since the arrest, he stared at it for a long time, and then he understood. The healing was tied not only to releasing her, but to becoming different. Not a single act, a new direction. The next morning, he did something unexpected. He requested a list of all current detainees held for personal religious practice alone. Captain Ferris blinked. "Sir? Those not charged with violence or coordination. Only private belief." Ferris hesitated. "That list is significant." "Bring it." Hours later, the stack lay on his desk. He read each file carefully. Names, ages, circumstances, stories. He saw fear. He saw stubbornness. He saw confusion. He saw people, not cases, not threats, people. His right hand rested on the desk, still dark across the palm, but lighter than before. He placed that hand on the first file and whispered quietly, "Teach me mercy." Beloved, the real miracle is not when the hand is healed, it is when the heart is. But change would not go unnoticed. And soon, a choice would confront him that would cost far more than swollen flesh. Because mercy in private is one thing, mercy under scrutiny is another. The list did not leave his desk for 3 days. Names, ages, reports, brief summaries. Most of them were young, students, foreign workers, quiet individuals accused of possessing unauthorized religious materials or gathering privately to pray. Weeks earlier, he would have signed most of them without pause. Now, he read every line, slowly, carefully. His right hand rested on the files as he worked. The darkness across his palm had faded further. The heavy, deep stain that once covered it entirely was now broken by patches of returning color. His knuckles were fully visible again, but the center of his palm still bore a darkened mark, like a memory that refused to disappear. Beloved, healing sometimes leaves a reminder so we never return to what wounded us. On the fourth day, he began issuing quiet directives, case review extensions, evidence re-examinations, transfer recommendations instead of confinement. No announcements, no declarations, just decisions. Captain Ferris watched carefully. "You are shifting the pattern," Ferris said one evening. "Yes, others will notice. They already have." Ferris lowered his voice. "Some believe you were shaken by the incident." Khalid did not deny it. "I was." The honesty startled Ferris. "You were not known for being shaken." "I was not known for being careful either." Silence lingered between them. Then Ferris asked the question he had avoided for weeks. "Sir, what happened to your arm?" Khalid looked down at his hand. The fading darkness caught the light. "It taught me something." Ferris waited. "That authority is not ownership." Ferris absorbed the words quietly. "Beloved, transformation spreads, not loudly, but undeniably." The scrutiny intensified. A formal review of his recent discretionary decisions was initiated. He was summoned again, this time not privately. 3 senior officials sat across from him. The atmosphere was colder. "You have altered enforcement consistency," one began. "Yes." "Why?" Khalid did not hesitate. "Because consistency without discernment becomes injustice." The words hung heavy in the room. Another official leaned forward. "Are you questioning established protocol?" "I am questioning whether we are applying it wisely." A thin silence followed. "You were once our most decisive officer," the first said carefully. "And now?" Khalid's voice remained steady. "Now I am more aware." "Of what?" He paused. "Of ink, of darkness, of a girl singing underground, of a hand that had swelled beyond recognition, of mercy that had stopped judgment mid-climb." But he did not say those things. He simply answered, "Of consequence." Beloved, when a man begins to see consequence clearly, fear loses some of its grip. That night, he stood again before the mirror. The blackness had retreated almost completely from his forearm. Only the palm and parts of the fingers remained faintly dark. The swelling was gone, the shape of his hand fully restored. He lifted it slowly, examined it. He remembered the first morning it had turned, heavy, unmovable, ashamed. Now it moved freely, but it would never feel ordinary again. He pressed his right palm against the mirror. "Thank you," he whispered. Then he added, "Help me finish what you started." The next morning, he did something that would change everything. He requested a private transfer, not resignation, not dismissal, reassignment, away from religious enforcement. The request shocked the internal office. "Why?" Ferris asked quietly when he heard. "Because I cannot return to what I was," Khalid replied. Ferris studied him carefully. "Do you understand what this means for your career?" "Yes." "And you are willing?" Khalid glanced at his hand. Only a faint shadow remained now. "Yes, I am." Beloved, mercy always asks for surrender. Not just relief, not just healing. Surrender. The transfer was not approved immediately. Resistance followed, questions, pressure, subtle warnings. But Khalid did not retreat. He continued reviewing cases with fairness, continued delaying unjust confinement, continued choosing discernment over speed. And as he did, the final traces of darkness across his palm began to fade. Not instantly, but steadily, as if something was being lifted layer by layer, until one morning, he woke and saw only a faint outline where the deepest stain had once lived. He flexed his hand, fully restored. He whispered again, "Jesus." This time, not as a question, as recognition. But transformation would soon demand a public cost, because mercy chosen quietly was one thing. Mercy defended openly would be another, and the next confrontation would not be about a file. It would be about his faith. By the 6th week, Khalid's arm looked normal. No swelling, no stiffness, no distortion, only the faintest trace of shadow across the center of his palm, barely visible unless he studied it closely. But he studied it every morning, not in fear, in remembrance, because he knew something now. The healing had not begun when the darkness faded. It had begun when pride broke. Beloved, the miracle was never about the hand. It was about the heart that controlled it. The pressure increased. His request for reassignment was not ignored. It was questioned, delayed, reviewed. He was summoned again. This time, the tone was sharper. "You have been a pillar of enforcement," a senior official began. "Yes, and now you request removal from that division." "Yes." "Why?" Khalid inhaled slowly. He could give political language. He could speak of restructuring, of strategic redistribution. But something inside him refused to hide. "I no longer believe fear produces loyalty." Silence. Another official leaned forward. "Since when?" He hesitated. "Since I saw what fear does." "To whom?" "To everyone." The room grew colder. "You are treading dangerous ground." "I know." "Have you adopted foreign influence?" one asked directly. The question was pointed, intentional. Khalid did not flinch. "I have adopted conscience." The words were bold, more than he had planned to say. The officials exchanged glances. "You understand?" One said carefully, "That deviation from enforcement philosophy can be interpreted as weakness." "Or wisdom," Khalid replied. "Beloved, mercy is often mistaken for weakness by those who fear losing control." He left that meeting knowing something had shifted permanently. His career would never return to what it was, and strangely, he felt peace. Not the fragile peace of comfort, the steady peace of conviction. That evening, he returned home and opened the New Testament again. He had been reading privately for days, quietly, slowly. He reached a passage that stopped him. "Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy." He stared at it for a long time. His hand rested on the page, fully restored. He turned his palm upward. The faint shadow had nearly vanished. Only a memory remained in his mind. He whispered, "Was that mercy?" And deep inside, he knew. But transformation would not remain private forever. 2 days later, a colleague approached him discreetly. "Is it true?" the man asked quietly. "Is what true?" "That you released her." "Yes." "And that your arm healed." Khalid held his gaze. "Yes." The man lowered his voice. "Some of the guards believe it was divine." Khalid did not respond immediately. "Do you?" The question hung in the air. He could deny it, protect his reputation, preserve image. Instead, he answered slowly, "Yes." The colleague stepped back slightly. "Are you saying—" "I am saying," Khalid interrupted gently, "that I was shown mercy." The man studied him with confusion, and something else, curiosity. "Beloved, when a transformed life becomes visible, questions follow." That night, Khalid descended underground one final time, not because anyone remained there, but because he needed closure. He stood in the empty chamber, the stone cold beneath his feet, the air still. He knelt again, not as an officer, not as a conflicted man, but as someone surrendering. "I believed I was defending strength," he whispered, "but I was defending pride." Silence surrounded him. He continued, "If you spared me, then teach me to spare others. No lightning, no thunder, just peace, deep, unshakable." Above ground, change continued quietly. His reassignment was approved, not as promotion, not as punishment, as lateral transfer, away from religious enforcement, into administrative oversight, less power, less visibility, less fear, more conscience. Captain Ferris met him privately before the transfer became official. "Do you regret it?" Ferris asked. Khalid looked at his restored hand. "No." "Even if it costs you?" "Yes." Ferris hesitated. "Why?" Khalid answered softly, "Because I would rather stand healed than stand feared." Beloved, man rules by fear, but God restores by mercy. And that contrast was about to become unmistakable, because what Khalid did next would risk more than his title. It would risk his reputation, and possibly his safety. By the time his reassignment became official, the rumors had grown teeth. Some said he had fallen ill and lost his edge. Some said he had been pressured quietly. Others whispered something far more dangerous, that he had changed loyalties. Khalid did not defend himself publicly. He simply packed his office, removed personal files, cleared his desk. When he lifted his right hand to carry the final box, he paused. It was steady, strong, completely restored, no darkness, no swelling, no stiffness. But he remembered every inch of shadow that had once covered it, and memory is sometimes more powerful than visible scars. Beloved, man rules by fear. He signs, he condemns, he controls. But God rules by mercy. He convicts, he exposes, he restores. And when mercy restores a man, it does not return him unchanged. On his final day in enforcement, he requested one last internal meeting. Not required, not strategic, personal. Captain Ferris stood beside him. Several officers gathered quietly, some curious, some skeptical, some guarded. Khalid did not prepare notes, he simply spoke. I built my career on decisiveness, he began. Silence filled the room. I believed strength meant swift action. Heads nodded subtly. But I learned something recently. His voice did not shake. I learned that power without discernment becomes injustice. One officer shifted uncomfortably. Another frowned. Khalid continued. I authorized confinement that I believed was lawful, but I did not examine my own motive. I acted quickly. He lifted his right hand slowly. Some had heard the rumors. Few had seen the reality. For weeks, this hand became something I could not explain. The room grew still. I searched for medical answers. He paused. There were none. Ferris watched him closely. Khalid inhaled slowly. And when I chose mercy instead of condemnation, the condition stopped advancing. The air tightened. I do not expect all of you to understand what I am saying. He met their eyes one by one. But I will say this clearly. He placed his restored palm against the table. Fear is not the highest form of authority. Silence pressed heavily against the walls, and I will not lead by it anymore. No applause, no argument. Just tension. One officer finally spoke. Are you saying your God healed you? The question landed openly. Not whispered, not hidden. Khalid did not look away. Yes, the word did not echo, but it divided the room. Some stared, some looked down, some felt something stir they did not have language for. He did not preach, he did not argue theology. He simply added, I was shown mercy when I deserved none. And then he stepped back. Beloved, there is a difference between preaching and testifying, he testified. Later that evening, Captain Ferris approached him privately. You understand what this means, Ferris said quietly. Yes. You may be watched. I know. You may not rise further. Khalid nodded. I would rather walk honestly than rise falsely. Ferris studied him. For a moment, the strong captain who once feared losing discipline looked thoughtful. Do you regret arresting her? Ferris asked. Khalid's eyes softened. Yes. Silence lingered. But I do not regret being confronted. That night, Khalid returned home and opened the New Testament again. He read slowly, absorbing, understanding more now than when he first typed the name into a search bar. He whispered aloud, I was blind. The words did not shame him. They freed him. The real miracle was not that a hand turned black. The real miracle was that a heart turned soft. But the story was not finished, because transformation always invites opposition, and what followed would test whether his change was temporary or permanent. When Khalid finished telling me this part of the story, he went quiet. He did not rush to the ending. He did not dramatize it. He simply looked down at his right hand and turned it over slowly. Beloved, I watched him do that, as if he could still see what used to be there. The darkness, the swelling, the shame. And then he said something I will never forget. It was never about my hand. He looked at me. It was about my heart. After his confession to his colleagues, life did not become easier. He was watched, observed, measured differently. Conversations quieted when he entered rooms, promotions stopped coming, opportunities narrowed. But something else grew. Peace. Not comfort. Peace. He was reassigned to administrative oversight. Less visible, less feared, less powerful, but more just. He reviewed internal complaints. He re-examined detention standards. He quietly redirected policies where he could. He did not preach in hallways. He did not stand on desks declaring faith. He simply chose differently, again, and again, and again. Beloved, man rules by fear. Fear demands compliance. Fear signs quickly. Fear silences. Fear punishes. But God rules by mercy. Mercy exposes pride. Mercy confronts injustice. Mercy allows darkness to surface, so it can be removed. Khalid once believed he was defending strength, but strength without mercy had turned his own hand into a symbol of judgment, and when he chose compassion over control, he was restored. Not only physically, spiritually. Months later, he received a message, not publicly, not through official channels, a quiet email from an unfamiliar address. It contained only a few lines. Officer Khalid, I am safe. I pray you are well. May the mercy shown to you grow into courage for others. He told me when he read it, he did not feel fear. He felt gratitude. He closed his eyes and whispered, Thank you. Beloved, the girl who was locked underground to die walked free. The officer who locked her there walked restored, and heaven defended both. Not with spectacle, not with violence, but with conviction, with exposure, with mercy. Khalid leaned forward slightly when he finished telling me his story. "I thought I was powerful," he said quietly, "but I was afraid of losing control." He lifted his restored hand again. "This taught me that authority belongs to God." He paused, "and mercy is stronger than fear." Beloved, if you are watching tonight and you are under pressure for your faith, if you are hidden, if you feel underground, if you feel unseen, hear me clearly. God sees you. He saw Miriam beneath the sand. He saw the document being signed. He saw the pride in a man's heart, and he defended his own, not only by protecting her life, but by transforming the one who condemned her. That is divine justice. That is divine mercy. Let us pray. Father, for every believer watching who feels silenced, pressured, or afraid, strengthen them. For those facing persecution quietly, defend them. For those in positions of authority who misuse power, confront them gently but powerfully. And for those whose hearts are hardened by pride, show them mercy before judgment. Teach us courage, teach us discernment, teach us to rule our lives not by fear, but by grace. In Jesus' name, amen. Beloved, if this story moved you, share it. Let someone know they are not alone. Comment where you're watching from. Stay faithful, stay courageous, and remember, the hand that signs judgment can also be restored by mercy. This is Unbroken Courage. Thank you for watching.